Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to our Open Up Live talk show. My name is Dipesh, and I'm social media coordinator of Voice of Men 360. Voice of Men 360 is a non-profit organization founded in 2020 and is based in Toronto, Canada. Voice of Men 360 was born out of seeing a tremendous need and stepping up to provide services to help support and overcome life's challenges in the boys and men of our community. We are part of International Men's Day. International Men's Day has been serving for over 21 years and so far 90 countries around the world. Joined together and doing various activities regularly, International Men's Day follows six pillars, which is the overall well-being of boys and men, and we follow in the same footsteps. Why open up? Because men do not open their hearts or and are willing to share their matters with anyone. When we keep their emotional challenges within, they at some point they explode and affect health conditions in many ways. This is why we want to create and open up space and allow individuals to share their journey through our platform. We aim to create awareness about life challenges, struggles, overcome ups and downs that boys and men go through in their lives. There are no limitations with gender, age, nationality, or ethnic groups in sharing your life journey. All walks of life can participate. Our goal is to make positive impact on someone's life through this program. Open Up Shows is on Sundays at 7 p.m. Eastern. We bring in an individual to each show and let them share their life experiences with you. Before I introduce our special guest for today, I would like to go through our disclaimer. We would like to remind you that Voice of Men 360's mission is always delivered with good faith and towards peaceful harmony. The views and opinions expressed in today's episode are those of our speakers and do not represent Voice of Men 360. Our organization engages in discussion forums to offer inspiration and create awareness of the issues of men who wish to overcome their life challenges. We are not providing medical or therapeutic advice. Should you require that type of assistance, we recommend you contact a medical professional immediately. If you have questions or concerns about today's episode or any Voice of Men 360 content, please email us at info@voiceofmen360.org. Today's guest is Anna Jasper. Anna is a model who also works in sales, promotions, marketing, and hospitality. She is also a mother of a 14-year-old son, as well as someone who's been recovering from alcohol addiction and has been sober for 8 years. Welcome, Anna, to the Open Up Show. Thank you for joining us and willing to share your life journey with us.
Hi, thank you for having me.
How's it going, Anna? How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. All right, so let's get started. Usually when we have guests on the show, one of the first questions we ask them is that, what were some of the incidents that happened in your childhood? Like, could be any age, maybe like 5, 10, or 15, that influenced you in what you're doing now?
Yeah, okay. So if we take, for instance, the modelling stuff that I'm doing now, I suppose looking back on my childhood, and it all ties in really. So I'd say, as you mentioned, I've got the recovery from alcohol addiction under my belt at the moment. And I would say that as a child, my first ever addiction was actually food. And I used that definitely as a way of making myself feel better and maybe less lonely, because I was very much a lonely child on my own a lot. So I sort of self-soothed with food. And so throughout my life, I've actually had a lot of issues with my weight and my mental wellness surrounding issues with food as well. Um, so tracking up to today, coming through from getting recovery from the alcohol addiction, I had also put on a lot of weight at the time. I was very depressed. I was eating a lot. I was drinking a lot, which obviously has a lot of calories and sugar in it. And I ended up quite large. So I took steps in order to lose the weight, and here we are today after I put in a lot of time and effort into managing to lose the weight, and that has had a massive impact actually on my mental health and my well-being and my self-confidence, and which has now allowed me to have the confidence to go out and do the modelling, and even things like this where I'm now public facing, putting myself out there. If this was like 8-10 years ago, I would never have ever had the confidence to do anything like this whatsoever. In fact, I used to hide myself away on purpose because I wanted to be invisible. I didn't want to be seen by anyone. So that's had a massive impact on me, definitely.
Wow, that's amazing. And yeah, no, definitely, I think a lot of people can relate to that because, like, especially in schools and our society in general, they don't really teach us healthy coping mechanisms.
Mm.
Um, Now, because, our organization is based on, well, boys and men, another thing we usually ask our guests is their relationship with their fathers. How would you describe your relationship growing up?
Okay, so me and my dad, I was very much a daddy's girl for sure. However, I was at a bit of a disadvantage because he worked away in London during the week and was only home at weekends. So where my brother was mummy's boy and I was the daddy's girl, obviously he got a lot more benefit out of that one. So me and my dad, we did get on, and but he was very much a man's man, so I think that ties in a lot to what your show is trying to achieve in that he's definitely still, even now, really somebody that doesn't open up or show any kind of what he would deem as a weakness or emotion, or just show any vulnerability whatsoever. So I certainly, I loved him dearly, obviously, but we didn't really spend any time together because he was away during the week, and then at weekends he'd come home and he'd be watching the football or spending time with my mum or whatever. So yeah, it was a difficult one. So there was nothing bad there, but there was also no real, like, he didn't teach me, how to grow or be a human or whatever. Do you know what I mean there?
Gotcha. And I mean, this kind of follow-up question to that, did you also have any other positive, healthy male role models around you?
No, no, unfortunately not. So I had my brother, and again, we were close, but also there's the sibling, rivalry and arguments that are normal. And then, as I said earlier, I was quite a loner child, and I didn't really have any friends. Whereas he was the opposite. He was very popular, so he was always out with his friends or had all of his friends over at the house. And obviously, he didn't want his annoying little sister just hanging around. So, I was very much just on my own, and no, there were no other male role models around.
Gotcha. No, I can tell that that can be incredibly difficult and feeling isolating.
Mm.
So, well, thank you for sharing that. The other question that we wanted to ask you was that could you tell us a little bit more about your recovery journey, and also about AA and how's that helped you in your recovery?
Yeah, of course. So, as I say, my first addiction definitely was food growing up. So I think I've always had a very addictive personality. And I first discovered alcohol at 12, and that was a disaster from the off, really. So I then had a very bad relationship with alcohol throughout that, and it got really, really bad in 2013, when my mother was diagnosed with cancer, and then 8 months later she passed away, and my whole world just sort of fell apart, and that's when the alcohol addiction really took hold and everything went spiraling out of control. And then after hitting the rock bottom, as you have to do, in December 2015, I managed to finally go sober for the first day after being in AA, I think about 2 months. I've been going to AA, still drinking, but listening to everybody there. And as much as I hated having to go in the first place, as a very independent person, I hated accepting that I was out of control and that I wasn't able to do it all by myself and that I needed help from other people. AA actually did save me. I kept going back because I saw all the people there that, from either day one or they're 25, 30 years sober and they're still there. And I just thought to myself, I desperately want what you've got, and this is the way you've done it. So there's obviously something working here. So I stuck with it, and it did help me. I did get sober, and I've stayed sober, and I've learned a hell of a lot of coping mechanisms and mindset tweaks from paying attention to AA and all the people there, and just learning that you can't always actually do everything on your own. Sometimes you do need to reach out and talk to other people, like-minded people that have been through the same sort of thing as you, and to accept help and be vulnerable is one of the hardest things. As I said, the way I grew up, I didn't have anybody there asking me if I was okay or if there was anything they could do for me. I never learned how to open up or be vulnerable. So it was a big challenge, and one that I'm so appreciative of today and still work on today. And that's one of the main things that I help my son with now as well, because I realise just how important it is in being a decent, well-rounded person.
Gotcha. And for the guests who don't know, basically what we're talking about here, AA is Alcoholics Anonymous, and I
Yeah,
believe it's a 12-step program,
it
right?
is. Yeah, it is, and it's very successful. It's not for everybody. Of course, it's not. No one shoe fits everybody, and there's plenty of people that try it, don't like it. But for me, it worked. I'll hold my hands up and say I didn't actually do the 12 steps as set out by them, but I bought all the books, I read all the books, I stick to the tenets of what they taught me, and for me at least, it worked, and I'm very grateful that I gave it a go and stuck with it.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, it sounds like you found a support system, especially, so I can relate to some of the things you said, like, having trouble asking for help, and then especially growing up, like, it's a difficult and isolating time. Like in my life, it was basically immigration. Like
Yeah.
once I immigrated from India to Canada, like, definitely felt similar things, like isolating, lonely, different culture. So no, that's great. And even in your first question, I think a lot of women and also men can relate also, especially when it comes to body image, and that element of shame and guilt
Mm.
involved, and just not being comfortable putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how you pretty much transformed now, and you're putting yourself out there, especially with modeling and what you're doing now. Um, Following up to our third question here, so you mentioned you have a 14-year-old son. Could you tell us a little bit more about how your relationship with him has changed over the years?
Yeah, so the biggest difference has been from when I was drinking to now, because it's a completely different relationship entirely. Um, the way I was when I was drinking, luckily he was still young, about 6, I think, when I finally got sober. But so those first 6 years were really ruled by drinking and any excuse for a drink. Whether I was sad, I'd have a drink. Whether I was happy, I'd have a drink. And so I was never really what I would say myself, because I was always ruled by whatever emotions were going on at the time and whatever reaction I then had with the drink as well. And I just think that I certainly didn't give him the best first few years that he possibly could have had. And then once I got sober and I realised, like, he was quite a sort of angry child, he was prone to outbursts, and lots of people around me were saying, oh, you should get him tested for this or that, maybe there's this wrong with him. And I just realised, like, there's nothing wrong with him whatsoever. He was just acting the way that he had seen me act, because you mirror what you're given as a role model, don't you? So, and he only ever had me. It's only ever been me and him. So he's had no other role model there to show him any other way of being. So he was angry and prone to outbursts and didn't know how to regulate his emotions or even feel them properly, because I hadn't shown him how to do any of those things. Then I realized, like, well, actually, I don't know yet how to do any of that stuff either. So I took a lot of steps into like solo therapy for me, solo therapy for him, joint therapy for the both of us, so that we could learn each other, how to, you know, express ourselves, how to actually feel within ourselves what we're feeling, why we're feeling it, how to negotiate it and react appropriately, and how to be able to talk about it. So there's been a lot of work that's gone into it all, because I just thought there's no way he should have to keep growing up confused and not knowing how to act or feel or anything, and getting labelled this, that, the other, just because I haven't taught him how to be. It's my job as his parent. I brought him into this world, so it's my job to show him how to navigate the world and understand it as best you can, you know. So I just put the effort in to try and help him, you know, not be so confused by life. I grew up very confused by life and not knowing really what was going on or how to feel or how to react to anything. So I'm very grateful as well, because I now have a much better understanding of myself and my emotions and how to act around certain situations. And me and him, we have a great relationship now, and we very much are open and honest with each other and able to talk about pretty much anything. So yeah, it's definitely helped.
Well, that's amazing. I think just having that awareness of how your emotions affect your child, I think that's one of the I don't want to call it hardest, but it does take a lot of awareness and mindfulness to acknowledge that. So in that sense, it's amazing that you were able to have that awareness, and it's awesome how your relationship has improved over the years, and you both are working together. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. I think that's that's good motivational factors for other people who are listening to also follow kind of in your steps.
Mm.
And yeah, no, that's amazing. Before we continue to our further questions, I just have a few special announcements. Um, we have a few live shows. One of them is called Open Up, which is sharing your life journey, which is a live talk show on Sundays at 10 a.m. EST. We have Villi, which is a Tamil live talk show on Sundays at 8 a.m. EST. We have our monthly men's group meeting, only for men by men, which is second Saturday of every month from 7 to 8:30 p.m. It's through Zoom and there's no recordings. The link is available on our Facebook page group. There are no limitations to gender, age, nationality, or ethnic groups. All walks of life can participate in any of our shows. If you want to be a guest on any one of our shows or willing to be part of our organization, please help us directly or indirectly and reach out to us. We would love to work with individuals, professionals, experts, community organizations, associations, corporations, government officials, and businesses. Phone number is 226-289-8784. Email address is info@voiceofman360.org. Our website is voiceofman360.org. You can find us on all social media, including Facebook. You can join our group so you can see our daily activities, and please also invite your friends as well. Some of the other social media platforms that we use are Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is Voice of Man 360. If you want to reach out to more people and help the community, please continue to show your support. Thank you. And Anna, so going back to your relationship with your son, what would you say some of the issues relating to boys and men's mental health that you see today, just in your surroundings, in the environment, and the people you know?
Yeah, so going on, just looking at my son and that sort of stuff. So obviously he's in high school at the moment, which, as we all know, is always a very difficult environment to be in. I think a big thing these days is the sort of stuff that they're getting taught in school, like around where they should be getting proper sexual education, they're instead getting all these different genders and stuff thrown at them, which I think is giving them far too many things to think about and choices at the sort of age they are, where they're at such an impressionable young age and confused by just themselves and life in general. And getting thrown all that sort of stuff, I think, makes it a lot more confusing for them. Then there's also the fact there's so much, there's a big drive at the moment, from what I'm noticing, on trying to recognise men's mental health, especially, but there's no real targeted actual help for them. So I'm not seeing as much change or improvement as there should be. So while everybody says, it's good to speak out, you should always feel like you've got somebody to talk to, I've seen it myself. People have reached out on social media saying, I really need some help right now. And the sort of comments they get back is just, oh, come on, go for a walk, or buck yourself up, you'll be fine, or don't you think you should keep this to yourself, mate? So as much as there's like two conflicting areas, there's one which is very much a prim and perfect sort of social media marketing campaign saying you should speak out and talk to everybody and always feel like, you don't have to keep your feelings to yourself, whereas in real life it hasn't quite translated over as well as it should just yet. And then looking at my son and the way that all of his friends are, culture's very different these days. So where when we were young we'd all be outside all the time, actually seeing people, interacting with them, it's not like that anymore. Like, he's just on his PlayStation all day, every day, and him and his friends interact through a headset and through the screen, which means you're missing out on vital learning opportunities of, like, even just simple things like eye contact, body language. You're not learning now how to actually physically interact with people and pick up on social cues and become socially interacted into the world. They're also not out there getting the fresh air or the sunlight or the physical activity that is so very important, especially for boys. You're very physical beings. You need to be out there actually letting off steam and, using your bodies and learning how to interact with other guys, especially. I think the whole way the world is now is just changed so much, and I think it's getting harder, if anything, for boys and men to really know what their place is in the world. I think there's also a bit of a drive in the world to sort of demasculate men in a bit of a way, and I think a lot of people have seen this and feel this. And while obviously toxic masculinity is something that we want gone, of course, I think it's being pushed so far that now men are in a position where if they so much as give a bad look or like raise their voice or something, all of a sudden they're jumped on and they're told, labeled this, that, the other. I think it's just going too far in one way. It's not helping them actually achieve what they need to achieve. Being a girl, obviously I can only look at it from my point of view, but I do think it's a very confusing time to be a boy or a man and not really know what it is that you're allowed to do or what's acceptable in your behavior.
Yeah, and I think that's a fairly accurate assessment because pretty much every guest we bring on, it's kind of similar sentiment where, they're saying that, a lot of boys and men, especially growing up in today's day and age, they feel disenfranchised.
Mm.
And I think you're definitely right. It's the culture we live in, the technology, social media, video games. Um, it's almost like a drug almost. It's easy to get addicted to.
Yeah.
And if you look at like neuroscience and neurophysiology and stuff like that, they say that like it's almost like our reward centers get hijacked. So instead of boys and men going out in the world, like social interactions, which is like one of the, because as human beings we are socially relational beings. Instead of building that, they are being hijacked by these video games and internet and all these other things.
Yeah.
So no, definitely, I can see that even here also. Western countries, even developing countries like India, China, Korea. So it's a big problem right now, and I think just us talking about it and raising awareness. I think that's usually the first step.
Mm.
So now I'm glad you recognize that, and I'm glad. it's something that you're aware of.
Yeah.
One of the last questions usually we ask is, what advice would you give to other people who are in the same situation as you?
Um. Okay, so if we go through from the addiction struggles and the mental health issues I've struggled with my whole life, on and off depression and feeling isolated and hyper independence and never reaching out for people, being a single mum, the issues that come with that is obviously you're everything to your child. You're the mum, the dad, the provider, the caregiver, the upbringer, you're everything. There's a lot of pressure and responsibility on your shoulders. One of the main things I would say is just realize and accept that it is actually perfectly normal to struggle and to have problems and to not always be happy and not always have the answers and to fail. That is normal. People now seem to think, or because of social media pressures, seems to think they always need to be happy and always have all the answers and have a rosy life, like they've got it all figured out. That's just not true. None of us really have it all figured out, and we're all just going day by day, getting through the best that we can. So my advice is really just to know that we all have our issues and we're all struggling, and that's absolutely fine. That's not a problem at all. And one thing I've learned is that it is important to be able to reach out and find people that understand you, have maybe gone through it or themselves, and so can empathize with you, or at the very least find at least one person that cares enough about you that they want to be there for you and to listen to you and help you out. And sometimes it's not even advice or help that you need. You just need a sounding board where you can just get everything out of your head, which really does sometimes help, just getting it out of your head so that you're not going over it so very much. But yeah, so like looking at how I'm now raising my son, I'd say communication, I think, is probably the absolute key in life, and being able to communicate effectively with people is really vital. So trying to find ways to effectively talk to the people around you in whatever situation you're in, and being able to adapt to each one, and knowing that, yeah, just talking things through and knowing, like letting him know, letting your kids know that they're able to come to you and talk to you openly as well, in order to help them understand themselves and what they're feeling and what they're going through, so that we can hopefully break any bad cycles that have come through the generations or even that are just in society. Like, just because every other kid is doing something doesn't mean your kid has to be that way either. Just give them the best possible chances in life. But yeah, I'd say communication and reaching out is definitely two of the main things that I've learned in life.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Anna, for joining our show
Thank
today
you for
and
having
sharing
me.
your journey with us. And thank you, everyone else, for joining us. Please share your comments and feedback, and we'll see you all next time. Thank you.
Thank you.